All right, Jyotsna, news just coming in is that Trump has now won the battleground state of Georgia. So he has two battleground states in his kitty, that's North Carolina and Georgia. The number stands is Harris with 210. These are the confirmed wins, confirmed electoral votes, and Donald Trump at 247. But the numbers you're seeing on your screens right now are a combination of leads and the wins for both the camps. We have Trump at 309 and Harris at 226. Jyotsna, while Trump has won the Sun Belt states, two Sun Belt states, it still remains to be seen how the election tilts because we don't have the results of the three blue wall states.
Absolutely. Now, Trump is leading in Georgia, has won, albeit a very narrow one for Harris. Now, this is very interesting because what we were looking for is these are the Sun Belt states, right? And we were following the blue wall as well. But now that he's taken the Sun Belt, North Carolina and Georgia, we got to see what happens next.
Right. Donald Trump has won key battleground states of Georgia and North Carolina and leading in the remaining 5 other battleground states.
Now, leads and results are pouring in every second in the U.S. presidential elections.
Donald Trump has won the elections in 23 states. The latest ones are North Carolina, Iowa, Kansas, Utah, Montana, Missouri, Texas, and Ohio.
Now, on the other hand, Harris has 17 states: Virginia, New Mexico, Oregon, California, Washington, and District of Columbia, Colorado, New York, and Delaware.
All Democratic strongholds that gives Harris 210 electoral votes, and Trump has 230 right now, with Pennsylvania also tilting towards Trump. The Republican contestant leads in all swing states, the only exception being Nevada, where trends are still to come in.
Meanwhile, the Republican Party has wrested control of the U.S. Senate from the Democrats with at least 51 seats in the 100-member upper house of Congress. U.S. networks projected early on Wednesday. Fox News and NBC News made the announcements after Republicans flipped 2 key states in Ohio and West Virginia.
All right, to discuss this further, we have with us VOA correspondent Chris Cascio joining us live from Detroit in Michigan. Hi, Chris. Welcome back. The news just coming in. Trump has won Georgia and North Carolina. What's the status there in Michigan, one of the key battleground states, which is also one of the blue wall states?
Yeah, 60% of the vote is counted here in Michigan, with Trump leading by about 6 percentage points and 200,000 votes. But it remains to be seen which of the vote is outstanding, whether it's the urban centers like Detroit and its suburbs and Grand Rapids in the west part of the state. So, expect that margin to close as the votes get counted. So we'll have to see what's going on in here in Michigan. But Harris's path has narrowed considerably with Georgia and North Carolina coming off the board. She basically has to keep the blue wall states, and if she's running competitively with Arizona, that could get her to 270, but Trump is closer to 270 than she is at this point. So it would really help her cause if she could hold on to, if she could win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Right, and it's interesting that you mentioned the urban and suburbs. Why do you think, like a lot of projections are saying that the suburbs have gone towards Trump? Why do you think so?
Yeah, because the economy is the top issue for a lot of voters in exit polling. In Michigan, about a third of them said actually 40% of them said that the economy was the most important issue. And 20%, surprisingly, said immigration was the most important issue. And Michigan is a northern border state with Canada just behind me, not a southern border state. So it seems like those messages from the Trump campaign that this election was about the economy and immigration have resonated so far, but we'll have to see with that outstanding vote that's out there. Nationally, it was interesting that 31% said that the state of democracy was the biggest issue, and then 30% said that the economy was the biggest issue.
Right. Chris, now Michigan, like you mentioned, is key for the race to the White House. It has been seesawing. Trump has just a 6% lead right now, too close to call, because Michigan also has a sizable portion of manufacturing and labor unions, with both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump trying to make inroads into that voter group. How do you think they will be voting? The voting, of course, they have voted. How do you think that will impact the presidential race?
You know, in a race where the margins really matter and they're expected to be razor thin, especially in a battleground state here like Michigan, we'll have to see, because, you know, the UAW president, Shawn Fain, who led a 6-week strike in 2023 against the 3 U.S. automakers, he has been vocal in his support of Harris, and Donald Trump has been vocal in his criticism of Shawn Fain, you know, calling him very nasty names, so, and that sort of thing. But it's very true that there is a fair amount of auto workers that support Donald Trump.
Now, this is interesting because in 2020, Biden won Michigan by 150,000 votes. And if you look at the projections right now, there's neck and neck with Harris and Trump. Tell us more on that.
Right. So Trump won Michigan by less than 11,000 votes, and Biden won it by 154,000 votes. And that was because, again, you saw that rural and urban suburban divide. So, you know, it's really, because Donald Trump is way ahead in all the rural counties. That's why you see large swaths of red in a state like Michigan, with squares of blue, which are the urban counties. So Harris really needs to run up the margins in those suburban areas and urban areas. You know, she's going to close this gap with Donald Trump and take the state, which is what Biden did in 2020. You know, and we'll have to look at the numbers to see whether she is performing behind or ahead of Biden.
Right, Chris, but that seems to be an uphill battle for the Democratic camp, because Michigan also has a large voter base of Arab American voters who are gravitating towards a third contestant. That's Jill Stein, who is a Green Party contestant. How do you see that complicating who wins the battleground state of Michigan?
Yeah, again, with razor-thin margins and at stake, Michigan is home to 300,000 Arab Americans. And Dearborn, which is right next to Detroit, is the first Arab majority city in the U.S. as of 2023, with more than 56% of its population being of Arab descent and 46% of its population being of Muslim descent. So the war in Gaza is a big issue. Many of them have family members there in Gaza and Lebanon, and they're just not supportive of the current administration. And I saw data from just one precinct, and Trump had 339 votes, Harris only 81, and she was outvoted by Jill Stein, who had about 100 votes.
Right, Chris, stay with us because my colleague Jyotsna will get you the latest trends and the numbers that are trickling in right now.
Absolutely. Now let's take a look at the numbers right now on each state. Of course, we know Georgia has been taken by Donald Trump. Let's take a look at other battleground states. Now you have Wisconsin. You have 51.4%. We know that Donald Trump is leading there with 86% of votes counted. Michigan is another battleground state with 62% of votes counted. Donald Trump is leading by 52.4%, while Kamala Harris is at 45.8% there. Pennsylvania, another battleground state, 90% of votes have been counted there. 51% is for Trump and 47% for Harris.
To give us a broader viewpoint of the numbers right now, the numbers on your screens, 312 for Trump, which is a combination of the leads and the wins, and 226 for Harris. We have been talking about here as to how Trump has won North Carolina and Georgia, but it'll come down to if he can actually win the blue wall states. Well, to discuss this further, stay with us, Chris. We also have with us James Adams from California. He's a professor of political science at the University of California. Welcome to WION, Mr. Adams. Now, we just have been talking about here that Trump has won North Carolina and Georgia. Do you think that Trump may not need the very essential battleground state of Pennsylvania? Is that a scenario which can perhaps erupt in the next few hours?
Well, if Donald Trump can win any of the three blue wall states, that's Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, then it seems almost certain that he will be elected president. So he doesn't have to win all three or even two of the three. Just winning one of those three will probably put him over the top. And right now he's leading in all three of those battleground states.
That's interesting because it's not just the three, it's actually more than three. We have Arizona and Nevada. We see Trump leading as well.
Yes, Donald Trump, for the third consecutive presidential election, is exceeding the polling numbers in the time going up to the election. In 2016, this resulted in a complete surprise victory for him. In 2020, Trump modestly outperformed his polling numbers, making the election closer than expected. And it appears that, at least today so far, Donald Trump is exceeding his polling numbers in most of these swing states by 1 to 3 percentage points. And given how close the polling numbers are, that is likely going to be enough to make him the next president of the United States.
Right. Mr. Adams, stay with us. I want to just take a quick question to our VOA correspondent, Chris. Chris, your perspective, because in 2020, we saw that Trump was able to win only the state of North Carolina, and now he's leading on the remaining 5 swing states, and he already has Georgia and North Carolina in his kitty.
Yeah, and it looks like he's overperforming what he did in those, urban and suburban counties in Georgia and North Carolina, and that's why he took the state. So we'll have to see whether that pattern holds true in places like Phoenix, Arizona, Detroit, Michigan, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Those outer ring suburbs, the wild counties of Wisconsin. So if he can cut into the margins, there's a good chance that he might take one or all of those 3 blue wall states.
Right, Chris, we'll wait and have to see how that pans out. As of now, Trump has North Carolina and Georgia. We'll have to wait and see what is the mandate from the 3 blue wall states as Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. But thank you for joining us on the show.
Professor Adams, I'd like to take you again for another question. You mentioned 2016, and it looks like it's a repeat of what happened in 2016. And it looks like Harris seems to be doing, which is very similar to Hillary Clinton.
That's right. In this election year, the result is not a shock. Most of the election forecasts predicted that the election would be on a knife edge and that the election was truly a toss-up. In 2016, on the morning of Election Day, most election forecasters gave Hillary Clinton a 95 to 99% chance of winning, so that Trump's victory was a shock. Trump's victory is not a shock this time, but again, he does appear to be modestly outperforming the pre-election polls by enough to put him over the top and put him back in the White House.
Professor Adam, just to take that point further, do you think that with Harris perhaps having a more popular vote, a popular mandate, but when it comes down to the electoral votes, the ball game changes altogether?
Yes, the ball game certainly does. It's not yet clear which candidate is going to win the popular vote. That is still very close, and we probably won't know that for at least 1 to 3 days until all the votes are counted. Nevertheless, it is possible that Kamala Harris will win the popular vote even while losing the Electoral College. If so, that would be the 3rd time in the 21st century, in 2000, 2016, and then again in 2024, where a Democrat will have won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College. But again, the popular vote appears to be extraordinarily close, so that even though pre-election polls had Harris ahead by 1 to 2 percentage points in the popular vote, it appears that it's going to be nearly even. We can't be certain yet which candidate will win the popular vote, though again, it seems exceedingly likely that Donald Trump will win the Electoral College.
Right, Professor Adams, thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights. With Trump winning North Carolina and Georgia, we'll wait and have to see who bags the 3 blue wall states. But thank you for joining us with your insights.
Thanks very much.